I'm glad. Well, you're about as far back as we get. We're gonna be working tonight from this book, Covenant Relationships. It was written many years ago. I could check the copyright date on it. 1989, which is before many of you were born. Certainly before many of your children were born. Okay. And it was written by a man known then as Keith and Trader, who moved to Israel and took the name Asher and became Asher and Trader. Keith Henshin is going to do the first half of the book. I'm going to do the second half of the book, and you don't have to read the book. To get the benefit of the book, we're going to give you the Cliff's Notes version tonight. And if you behave yourselves, when we're done, we'll hand out some handouts. And it's good of you to be here so we can perform this for a live audience. We're recording it, of course, for YouTube, so others in the future will be able to avail it. And this is the first of a 6-part series. The other 5 parts have already been in the can for about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. And that's a good thing. The reason we're re-recording this one is that someone, we don't know who, we shall remain anonymous, didn't push the record sound button when he pushed the record button. And somehow we got no sound. So it was a sound technical problem that you can only cure with a sound man. You look like a sound man to me. Come on up here. Father, would you anoint us all to appreciate what you are, the God of covenant. You are the Lord of all covenants. All covenants are under your authority. And we would ask you to be under this covenantal sharing of covenants. We bless you and thank you for this special time together. In Yeshua's name, amen. May you be anointed to present with clarity. May we be anointed to hear with clarity. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Now, Rabbi previously said we're going to share with you from the book of Covenant Relationships. Hey, I've got the first 3 chapters. He's got the rest of the book, and there's 36 chapters. So the reality is, no, don't just take our word for it. I would encourage you to get the book. It is awesome. When we first came to Shomer, it was one of the first books that I started reading, and it's amazing. Just the quality of information that is in here. It's very, very valuable, and I believe it'll help to make you a better human being, a better person.
You provoked me. Years ago, and I'm talking 15, 20 years ago, we started going through that book as part of a Bible study. It took us a year and a half to go through the book. One time I approached Dan Juster, my rabbi, and I said, there's some remarkable information in Covenant Relationships by Keith and Trader. And he says, well, I was his rabbi when he came to faith. Who do you think taught him all those things?
So may we receive and learn from this as well. So what I am going to do is I'm going to make a few highlights of the first 3 chapters for you this evening. We do go through it, I think, later on in the other sessions. That I think we touch on them a little more. But the things I want to talk about this evening is relationships, defined as the meaning of life. Then the second chapter we're going to go for is the need for covenant, and explain why do we need covenant in our lives. And third is how a covenant works. So I know that there's a lot of there may be some people who struggle with coming into covenant with certain things, with certain people. And when we think about covenant, Abraham was a man of covenant. And Abraham stood outside his tent and he watched and he saw 3 men coming, right? What did he do? He ran out to greet them and then invited them in to feed them in his home. One thing that we don't realize in our society today is that when we sit down and we eat a meal, that is one of the ancient ways of coming into covenant with someone. When we sit across the table from them and we eat a meal together. It's an act of covenant. When you invite someone into your home, you're coming into covenant with them as a friend, or maybe even more, even a deeper relationship. So there's a few things I want to talk about, and we'll get into this. Why become a member of Shomer? I'm sure you have your own reasons, and we have reasons as well. But one of the biggest reasons that we encourage people to become members at Shomer, and when we say members, it's actually to become a member of the family of Shomer. When you become a member of the family, of any family, you come into basically a ceremony. Y'all had a ceremony about 2 years ago, right? And you came into covenant with each other, in a marriage covenant. And there was a ceremony involved. But that ceremony was simply the beginning. And that covenant was cut. That covenant was started actually even before the marriage ceremony. There was an agreement that was made. And oftentimes it's the agreement that I like you and you like me. And I think this is a good thing. And we come into covenant in marriage. We stand before witnesses and before the Lord, and we declare, I will be faithful to you. And we receive the words, so-and-so will be faithful to me. Right? Well, covenant, coming into a relationship in the body of Messiah is so valuable. Because there's not a one of us that God ordained to walk alone. There's not one of us He ever created to be an island in and of himself. We need each other. And really, the reality is, I'll tell you a little secret. If God has ordained for you to be a member here, we won't do very good getting along without you. And if you're supposed to be here and you're not going to get along very well without us. We need each other. So why become a member? I'd say that's a pretty good reason for me. I don't know what reason you may need, but there are many other reasons to become a member. There's value in the relationships that you will build with others who you are walking alongside in relationship as pertaining to your faith. You can be built up and strengthened. We're talking about this on Shabbat. We're talking about how we become disciples of Yeshua, following his teachings and becoming more and more like him. We can't do this by ourselves. We've got to have each other. We've got to have somebody that is willing to withstand us to the face when we're making mistakes and saying, brother, stop. Don't do that. But not just that. It's like, hey, you may be doing it wrong, but here, let's walk this out together. Let's do this together. We love you. But there's also the fact of a place for you to serve. A place for you to invest your time and efforts in the kingdom. It's a place for you to create those lifelong, lasting relationships. There's a whole lot more benefits to it that I'm probably not even thinking of at the moment. But if you're here, you're probably at least somewhat convinced that membership is a good thing. So I'm going to move on from that. I've got a note here that says Paul on his journeys started communities of Messiah. No one makes up a community by themselves. Paul wrote in his epistles to Messiah's communities to establish godly order in those communities. And you can read in Corinthians and Galatians the corrections he was making to those communities. He writes to the Kedoshim. He writes to the saints that are in Ephesus, the saints that are in Philippi, the saints that are in Corinth. In Acts chapter 15, I'll grab my Bible here. Acts 15, verse 20, 21 and 22. Let me read that to you. It says, but to write to them to abstain, let's see, is that right? Acts 15, 21 and 22. He's giving correction. He's giving correction to those in the community. Therefore, I judge it. Actually, this is James, the Council of Jerusalem. Write to them to abstain from the contamination of idols, from sexual immorality, and from things strangled, and from blood. For Moses, from ancient generations, has in every city those who proclaim him, since he is read in all the synagogues on every Shabbat. You know, the synagogues were the ancient Jewish way of staying in community. Rabbi, have you ever heard of a Jewish community anywhere in the world that didn't have a synagogue? They don't exist. The synagogue is the center of it's the heartbeat of the community. Revelations 2 and 3 speak, they're actually the letters that Yeshua gave to the communities in Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Laodicea, and Philadelphia. Did I get all 7 of them? I got 6. Sardis. Sardis is the 7th one. Not in that order. But these messages were sent only to the communities of Messiah. So I guess the point I'm making is that Yeshua even himself places emphasis on a community. He never writes to an individual. So these messages do not apply to those who are not connected to a community. God's desire is for us to be a covenantal part of a community. So when we get into this book here, we find in the first chapter, he talks about relationships being the meaning of life. Our God is a God of relationship. We find that out, first of all, when we call him Father. There's a relationship there. Father and Son being the primary relationship. Everything in the universe was created by God as an outpouring of that relationship. It's kind of like God created the heavens and the earth for the benefit of his Son, so that his Son could have a bride. That relationship that was begun in the garden was broken and is currently in the process of restoration. So Ephesians 1 verse 10, we find the plan of the fullness of time is to bring all things together in Messiah. Why? Because they've all been scattered abroad. They've all been destroyed structurally. They've been tossed to and fro. And so the plan of restoration is to bring all of those things back together in the second Adam. Ephesians 4 verse 10 speaks of the one who came down as the same one who went up far above all the heavens in order to fill all things. And we read on through verse 11, 12, and 13. It says, He gave some to be emissaries. This is our memory verse, our memory passage that we've chosen for this time is He gave some to be emissaries, some as prophets, some as proclaimers of the good news, and some as shepherds and teachers, to equip the Kedoshim. Anybody know who the Kedoshim are? How about we all raise our hands and identify as the Kedoshim? We're the saints. We're the holy ones. What makes us holy? I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine in Texas today. What is it that makes us holy? It's being set apart, right? Being made different. Okay, for instance, some of you ladies may have a china cabinet. In that china cabinet, do you keep your daily dishes? No. No. Why would we do that? No. Those dishes are set apart, right? Those dishes are for very special occasions. They're sanctified. They're made holy. They're not for common use. And so, if we're going to be set apart, we're different from the world. I used the illustration before. You know, if I wanted to be different from the world, there was a day that if I wanted to be different from the world, I could get myself a purple mohawk. And I would be different from the world. It's not the case so much today. But there was a time when I could have a purple mohawk and I would be different from the world. That would set me apart. But is that separated unto God? So what makes us separated unto God? It's keeping the commandments. Actually walking as He walked. Doing what He said is the good thing, the righteous thing to do. So to be more like Him, right? That's holiness. That's sanctification. That's what sets us apart from the world. It puts a border, a boundary between us and the world and makes us different. And so for us to be the Kedoshim, we have to be Kadosh. We've got to be holy. We've got to be set apart. And if we're walking that life and being different, we are the Kedoshim. And if you're one of the Kedoshim, God has given you a gift. He's given you the gift of the emissaries, the prophets, the proclaimers of the good news, the evangelists, and the shepherds and teachers, or pastors and teachers. He's given you those officers as a gift. Why? It's to equip you, to put the tools in your belt, and to teach you how to do. That's what an equipper does. You have the right equipment to equip the Kedoshim for the work of service. I said this not too long ago, that the evangelicals have got this idea that the pastor is the one who does the work of the ministry and everyone else just comes and sits at his feet and learns. Anybody been part of anything like that before? That's where I come from. But I've since learned differently. That the job of the pastor, the job of the teacher, the job of the apostolic leader, the evangelist, and the prophet is really supposed to be putting the tools in your belt so that you can be the one doing the work of the ministry. Look what it says. Some as emissaries, proclaimers, prophets, proclaimers, shepherds, and teachers to equip the Kedoshim for the work of service, for the building up of the body of Messiah. The work of the service is what builds up the body of Messiah. And interestingly enough, I believe that we receive rewards in the kingdom for the work that we do. and how evil of the enemy to deceive people today to believe that the work of the service is to be done by the pastor. He's robbing you of your reward. So really, the work of the service builds up the body of Messiah, and you're supposed to be the one doing it. Not the pastor, not the teacher. Me as the pastor, I'm supposed to be helping you to sharpen your tools. I'm supposed to be helping you to acquire the tools. I'm supposed to be teaching you how to do it. And then you coming along and doing it for your own reward. And the other benefit is, on the side, the body of Messiah is built up and strengthened. How cool, huh? This is going to continue until we all come to unity of the faith and of the knowledge of Ben Elohim, the Son of God, to mature adulthood. The idea is for us to, as we do the work of the service together, we build up the body of Messiah. And as we build up the body of the Messiah, we actually grow to maturity. We become more and more mature in our walk with Him. How many of us today are still at the same infant stage of our spiritual walk as we were when we started? It's not. It's off to the side. It's not me. None of us are. Why? Because we grow in the Lord. We're growing to maturity. That's really the goal of the body, is to make us all mature in Him, to mature adulthood to the measure. Now, here's the goal. Do you need a goal? You need an end line? You need the field goal? Here's the field goal: to the measure of the stature of Messiah's fullness. I haven't arrived yet. And I don't see anyone here who has either. But that's our goal. That's what we're aiming for. That's the mark. I press toward the mark for the high calling. Right? And so that's what we're doing together. So we do this as we walk together in covenant. The unity and harmony of our relationships is not a strategic method to accomplish some other goal. Unity and restoration of relationships is the goal itself. All the work of the ministry is for the building up of the body of Messiah, so that the body of Messiah can become mature. This is interesting. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. Right? That's what the Bible says. Do you think Yeshua wants to be unequally yoked? If he is searching for his bride or waiting for his bride, I believe that's why he wants his bride to come to the full maturity, to the measure of the stature of Messiah. He wants to marry his equal. He wants to be equally yoked. That's our goal. And we do this by walking together in covenant, as a practice run to walk together in covenant with Him. So the next chapter, I'm going to move on to the next chapter. Some of us may ask, how can we guarantee that a relationship will not be broken? You can't, can you? What are the terms of any relationship I should enter into? How can I cause the other party in the relationship to be as committed to success as I am? The answer is covenant. Covenant is so powerful. It's a binding together. It's an agreed binding together that's not to be broken. Until what? Death do us part? Covenant is the agreement between two parties to be committed to their relationship. It is the commitment that lies behind any successful relationship. There's a number a number of folks in here who have been married for a number of years. I'm going on... No, I haven't forgot. I just haven't added. I think it's 17 years this year. And the reason it works is because of covenant. Because of covenant. You want to know how I talked to her? There's no question. I married a saint. You want to know how I landed that big fish? You want to know how I got Cammie to marry me? Her prescription is so strong. She's blind without her glasses, so I stole her glasses. She couldn't see what she was doing. I'm kidding. So, anyway, I jest. The covenant is the commitment that lies behind every successful relationship, and it also comprises the principles of integrity that guarantee a relationship will be preserved. When we come into a disagreement with one another, we don't just throw up our hands and walk away. When we walk in covenant, we are committed to working it out. We are committed to sitting down and talking and saying, okay, wait a minute. Let me make sure that I understand your perspective. And let's make sure that you understand where I'm coming from. And let's work this out. We don't just go to blows immediately. We have communication with each other. Right? The world doesn't want to do that anymore. They just want to say, forget it and walk away. Actually, they don't even want to come into covenant, period. But this is God's plan. It's not ours. We're just recognizing what He has done, what He's got. So what does this look like? There's an example of it with hospitality. You know, Abraham, I go back to Abraham again. When he invited those three men, one of whom I believe was Yeshua, when he invited them to come and sit and have a meal, he told his servant, quick, go kill the fatted calf. Hey, Sarah, quick, bake some bread. Right? He had hospitality. I believe that Shomer is a very hospitable place. Now, Rabbi has received reports of otherwise, that we're not even a friendly congregation because we don't greet anybody, we don't shake hands. As people come in late and leave early, we get the. But I really believe that we are a very hospitable place. A man that has friends must show himself to be friendly. We desire to have that and to be hospitable. It's not our nature to be hospitable per se. It says in Ephesians 2:12, at that time you were separate from Messiah, excluded from the commonwealth of Israel, and stranger to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. There was a measure of vulnerability and jealousy and faithfulness involved. So when we come, what does that mean? Vulnerability, jealousy, and faithfulness. Which of these three does not fit? Vulnerability, jealousy, and faithfulness. Three strange terms to use in covenant, right? When we come into covenant, we become very vulnerable with each other. Right? I mean, the closer you get, as a married couple, you get to see the good and the bad. You get to see the dirty laundry, literally. And you deal with it. There's vulnerability there. Because when you come into covenant, the shield comes down. Jealousy? Well, okay, what? We got to explain this. Why jealousy? Well, number one, our God is a jealous God. And when we come into covenant with each other, I'll tell you, I'm very jealous of my wife. If another man starts flirting with her, I take it upon myself to be very jealous. And he may wind up with a black eye, bloody nose, fat lip. Who knows? That's my wife. Kind of understand what Samson was saying. You've been plowing with my heifer? There's jealousy there. Jealousy is not an evil term. Covetousness is not good. And our society today has taken and swapped or put the term of jealousy upon covetousness. When someone is jealous of someone else's something or other that they don't really, it doesn't belong to them. But our God is a jealous God. He's jealous for his people. Another word for jealous could be zealous. He has zeal for his people. And it's righteous. It's righteous for me to be jealous over my wife. It's actually unrighteous for me to not be jealous over my wife. She belongs to me and no one else. Levi, you just came into covenant. You have a good reason to be jealous. When you stomped on that glass, you declared your jealousy. That was the marker in the sands of time. She belongs to me now and no one else. Faithfulness. When we come into covenant, we're proclaiming we're going to be faithful to this covenant. So the whole point about this is that we take it seriously. As we come in, as we welcome people to become members at Shomer, we take our relationships with them very seriously. And so if you become a member at Shomer and then you all of a sudden start going off and you're going to another community here and you're visiting, you're going around, well, that's okay to visit. But if it happens to be 2 or 3 times a month, we're a little jealous, questioning your faithfulness. And so we're going to sit down, we're going to have a talk and say, hey, what's going on? So we take it seriously that these 3 things, we're going to be vulnerable with you, but we're also going to be jealous. And we expect you to be the same. And we expect faithfulness as we are faithful to you. So then the third thing I'm going to hit real briefly, and then we'll move on. How a covenant works. A covenant can be seen as an oath that seals the relationship between 2 people. When you came into covenant with your husband or wife, marriage covenant is like the most common covenant that people are familiar with today. There's actually a number of ancient covenants that can be referred to. There's a blood covenant, a salt covenant, a sand covenant, and each one of them has different meanings and different purposes. But when when 2 people come into covenant together, it can be seen as an oath that seals the relationship. Right here, I carry with me the seal of the relationship that I have with my wife. It's a sign between 2 parties. So a ring can be a picture of it. With God, circumcision is a sign of the covenant. Another ring. Thanks, Roger. I give up. Good thing I'm almost done. All right, and Shabbat. Shabbat is also another covenant that we come into. Shabbat is to be an everlasting covenant between God and his people. All right, a covenant also has rules that are the foundation of the relationship. A husband and wife fidelity is a good example, that they're going to be faithful to that relationship. They declare their faithfulness at the altar or in the front of the congregation. They declare their faithfulness to each other in front of an audience before God and these witnesses, right? If one partner is unfaithful, it doesn't matter how well they do the chores around the house. The performance of obedience cannot restore the breach of trust. Covenant is founded on trust and fidelity. As long as you trust each other, all is well, isn't it? As long as you can trust your husband, as long as you can trust your wife, it doesn't matter what they do. But if that trust is broken, it really doesn't matter how well they do anything. The relationship is in jeopardy. So the cornerstone of covenant is trust. There's other things that I want to encourage you to, if you have an opportunity, get the book, Covenant Relationships. I believe it'll help you to become a better disciple of Yeshua, understanding what the foundation of covenant is, and just to be able to start walking in covenant with that understanding, because it's not part of our society today. It is so disconnected from what we do as a people. Our society is not a covenant society. So I want to just encourage you, get the book if you get a chance. Rabbi, I'm going to call on you. You're next. Tag, you're it.
Well, this is fun. I'm ready. Would you mind to fetch my chair?
I don't mind at all. Let me give you this, and I'll go get it for you.
I'll just stand here for a minute till I get a chair. I don't know if you know this, but Jewish people vacation in chairs. Gentiles go hiking. It's according to Jackie Mason. First question every Jew asks when they go to vacation is, do they have a chair? Anyway. Keith, in all honesty, I want to talk to you for just a minute. I've got 2 pages of notes. When I'm done, I'm going to hand them to you. But I'm afraid you'll read them while I'm talking, so I'm not going to give them out now. Keith, you scared me. If I were a prospective new member listening to that talk, I would take a self-assessment and say, covenants are very precious to me. I don't sign them easily. I don't make them easily. They're serious. They rarely come with a guarantee. They're risky. And to be straightforward with you, if I could, go ahead, you answer it now and pay the price later. I'm just kidding. It's okay, Jim. Happens to the best of us. Seriously, we're all a bunch of nuts. If you're waiting for the normal congregation to come along, where is it? When you get to know the people, you find out they might look normal and smell normal, and they're I cracked up a few of you. That's good. Seriously, the week after I got saved, my rabbi takes me out to a cup of coffee and he says, now that you're saved, you need to join the community of the Lord and be involved in the people's lives. And I looked at him and said, why? They're all nuts. And I can proudly say, I are one. In fact, I was sitting there thinking as Keith was talking, how many times I had the chance to mess this up over 25 years. There are so many ways to get congregational life wrong. So many easy ways to make mistakes. It's a testimony to the truth and reality of God that I'm standing here today. You might think this is a natural fit for me, but I can tell you it took God to get me here. Covenants are promises with intention. They're made up of words. And keeping our word, you mentioned integrity. That's a good definition of integrity, keeping your word. It does not require training. I used to employ 100 people in my business. And I tried to make it clear every time I completed an interview that we're going to teach you how to do your job, but we do not need to teach integrity. Integrity is being at work on time when you're scheduled. That's integrity. We don't have to teach people to come to work on time. You either do or you don't. There's not a training program for that. Keeping our word does not require training. Numbers 30, verse 2, whenever a man makes a vow to Adonai or swears an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he is not to violate his word, but do everything coming out of his mouth. It's repeated in Deuteronomy 23, verse 21. You know, Yeshua told a story in Matthew 21 of two sons. My rabbi borrowed it, and I thought it was original to him. He told a story of two sons. Two sons are watching TV. Dad says to the older boy, "Son, I'd like a glass of water." "In a minute, Dad, I want to finish this program." And in a minute, he goes and gets the water and brings it to his dad. He says the same thing later to the second son, younger son. "Son, I'd like a glass of water." Boy jumps up, gets a glass of water. As he's running to bring it to Dad, he trips and falls. Who did the will of his father better? The one who slipped up or the one who heard and didn't act? Yeshua tells this story in Matthew 21:28. Now what do you think? A man had two sons, and he went to the first and said, "Son, go work in the vineyard today." And the son answered, "I won't." But afterward he changed his heart and went. To his second son he went and said the same thing. He said, "Yes, sir, I will," but never went. Which of the two sons did the will of the father? They all answered correctly, the first. And then it dawned on them that he was talking about them. A covenant, we talked about rules of covenant. The big rule of covenant is that it's governed by love. And love works as long as there's trust. When trust breaks down, love breaks down. When love breaks down, law takes over. That's what happens in a marriage. You have a marriage governed by love until it's no longer governed by love, and then you go to court and you tell the court, "We're going to need you to decide how we're going to handle this because we can't handle it ourselves anymore." And so the covenant of congregational life is governed by love as well. It's a loving place. There have been times in Shomer's history when I would honestly say to people, "I don't think this is a safe place for you." I got to tell you today, the way we leaders love each other. I love you, man. And we spend a lot of time together, and we enjoy each other's company. And I think it comes out of our love in our marriages. Our love in our marriages are strong. And then we're able to love each other, and love works from the inside out. And we're inviting people to come into that relationship and build us up in Messiah Yeshua. Spiritual growth, here's a note right in the middle of the page. Spiritual growth is based on the ability to keep your word. I used to ask all the time to my employees if I would give them an instruction. I would finish the instruction by saying, do I have your commitment on that? Commitment is a word that gets underused in our society today. But watch your words. Be careful what you make a commitment to. I don't know if you know this, but we have 3 levels of leadership at Shomer. And every member of the community, every member at Shomer is invited to be on a team, to be part of a team. Second level is to lead a team. And we have a group of about a dozen leaders in the congregation that lead teams. And the third level is to be an elder in the congregation, that for people who've proven the ability to lead a team effectively, maybe even multiple teams, they're then qualified to be elders in the congregation. We need more elders. We need to grow our team. We need bench strength. We need people. I look around every Saturday. Who's stepping up in the congregation? Who's ready for the next step in the congregation? Aren't we constantly? We asked that question yesterday. We had a little meeting after the service because we just couldn't stand to be away from each other. Leadership is in disrepute in our modern society. Those in authority are too often castigated for leaving. What do I mean by that? When I was young and I had a problem at school, I was in trouble. Today, Johnny has a problem at school, the teacher's in trouble. That's what I'm talking about. But leading is not directing. Leading is being out in front. Leading is saying, follow me, follow my example. You know, we've seen examples of police being at fault. I've been a police chaplain for 20 years. And their job is day in and day out to see the worst of society on their worst day at their worst time. It's not an easy job. And the exceptions are not the rule. But it's very easy. It's easy in the congregation for a leader to take on an attitude of a supreme leader and be wrong-minded about the image of a leader. Leaders are called to serve. We had our members meeting recently, and we said, who are we going to get to serve at the members meeting? And immediately we said, why the elders should serve. We'll be the ones that serve everyone. That's what we wanted to do. That's our heart. That's our vision. So I want to deal now with the concept of offense for a minute. There's a book written many years ago by John Bevere, The Bait of Satan. And I'll be a spoiler. Spoiler alert. Go la 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 if you don't want to hear this. The bait of Satan is offense. People get offended and they take the bait. The offense will come. The Bible promises offense will come. When you get offended, what do you do? How do you respond? What happens next? We try to coach people, and we teach this, and I'm teaching you now. When your brother offends you in a fault, according to Matthew 18, go to him that you might win your brother. That includes leaders. If a leader offends you, go to him. Here's how it starts. I need to talk to you. What you said hurt me. Was that your intention? Ask a few questions. Yeshua built his whole ministry on asking questions. Was that your intention to hurt me? Was that, I feel hurt, am I wrong? And as leaders, may we have the wisdom not to respond in reaction, not to respond in a knee-jerk reaction, but to respond in love and to hear someone's heart. And your feelings are never wrong, they're your feelings. Offense is actually rooted in pride because it starts out this way. You know what? I deserve better than I got. That's a pretty good definition of pride, isn't it? Another point is to desire to grow our areas of responsibility. I covered that already. That was good. I'm ahead of the game. I got to turn this over and I'll be finished with the rest. Let me suggest to you that if you can fog up a mirror, you are gifted. There's, the Lord said he gave gifts to men. If you're not gifted, God is a liar. You've got gifts. And we want to bring our gifts to the congregation, to the community. You caught my attention on something you said. And I'm trying to remember how to phrase it. It had to do with keeping the commandments of God and being holy. You said we're called to be kadoshim. Is that right? We're called to be kadoshim, holy. Holy people keep the commandments of God. There are a great number of the commandments of God that can only be fulfilled in a community covenant relationship. So I was sitting there asking myself, which ones? I believe that, but I'm trying to think of which ones. And I'm thinking, one of the top two. The first one says, love God. The second one says, love your brother. And God says, don't even try to love me unless you have loved your brother. And well, can't you love people outside of a community relationship? No. Because loving outside of covenant is not covenant relationship. Almost did it. Almost. We love in covenant. People were instructed to bring their offering to the door of the tabernacle, at the place God shall choose. Not just any old place, not just any old time. Times and seasons appointed by God, places appointed by God. So, I'm pretty close to done. I want to close out with something. There are two things. At the end of the book, there's a chapter on tribal covenant and another chapter on tribal loyalty. In tribal covenant, we work out our differences within the family. Those tribes were based on families. A tribe is a big family. It's an extended family. And Jewish people are tribal in orientation. A tribe has a banner. Have you heard the phrase Yehovah Nisi? The Lord is my banner. That banner is, anybody been in the military? Raise a hands, veterans. Did you have a unit? I don't know whether, I'm not clear on the jargon or terminology. A company? Did you have a company flag? Did you rally to your company flag in an assembly of sorts? If the battalion were on the move, you would stay with your company flag? This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that kind of covenant, rally to the flag, loyalty. A nace is a banner or a sign. It's also a miracle. We rally to the miracles. And my last note has to do with something that we're connected to deeply at Shomer. And we've had some revelation on this, and I want to let you in on what's fresh and new in this year. And that is, just speaking off the cuff, I'm out of notes now. My last note reads this, it's a one-liner. The restoration of Israel runs parallel to the restoration of the church. In Messianic Judaism, we want to see Israel saved. Everybody go like this. We want to see Israel saved. Now, that's not true throughout Christianity. There are Christians, and if you'll talk to me privately, I'll tell you who. Notable television evangelist Christians who believe in something called dual covenant. Dual covenant. Sounds evil from its very name, doesn't it? What's a dual covenant? A dual covenant is the idea that, and when we use it here, that Jewish people have a separate covenant with God, and they get a pass from believing in Jesus because they're Jewish. And there are lots of ways to explain that, wrap it around the pole, define that, but when I say it in that plain English, it's pretty easy to spot it for heresy. Wouldn't you agree? Mark, did you need something? No, it's not. Replacement theology is another heresy. Replacement theology is the idea that the church has replaced Israel. Dual covenant believes that Jewish people are included in the covenant of God, but without Jesus. They get a pass because they're Jewish. The dual covenant people believe that Adonai is Jewish. So even if you just call on him in the name God, which he is God, but if you call on him in the name God, if you call on him in the name of God the Father, just because he's God the Son and you're not calling on him as God the Son, then it gets a little twisted. That's why I'm telling you it's twisted. They also have a mishmash that they believe that you can call, some of these folks believe that you can call on God in any name, call on Yeshua in any name, even the name Allah, and he will answer you. What? Well, Keith hit it pretty hard, and I'm not going to do it, but he's jealous God. He gave you a name. He expects you to answer to your name. He's going to answer to his name. You call him by a different name, you're going to get a different response. Something like, "You talking to me?" Thank you, Roger. But the latest and greatest that I did want to share with you, the one thing that I think is really wonderful, is that we are committed to seeing Israel saved, but we're also committed to seeing Israel valued in the Christian community. And let me put it this way. Peter had a vision on the rooftop. The whole sheet coming down from heaven, Peter kill and eat, no, Lord, I've never eaten anything common unclean, all of that. And he didn't understand what that vision was about until he met Cornelius. And Cornelius and his entire household became the first non-Jewish people welcomed into the family of God, the family that consists of what God is doing in the world today. We have a vision of inclusion, but we haven't met Cornelius yet. We're looking for Cornelius, and one of the things that we plan to involve the congregation in is helping us find Cornelius. That sound too fuzzy? I'm getting some quizzical looks. I see the question mark over your heads. If that's too much information, too soon, too fast, I apologize. I'm on the American Apostolic team for Tikkun America. Have been for probably 15 years, something like that. And this is an extension. We had this vision ourselves in our elders retreat in September. Then in November, I went to Florida to the American Apostolic team meeting, and they had the same vision. Jan, you were with me on both occasions. You heard it. When you start to get confirmations like that, it's a pretty good sign that it's from the Lord. Jan, I'm glad you raised your hand. Can you step up here for a minute? Come here. I wanted to call you up front anyway.
I necessarily want to come up.
Come up here for a minute. I want you up here.
So you have to be obedient.
Yes, show everyone.
The thing I was going to say about the Cornelius thing, I think the easiest way to explain it would be Psalm 133, when he says, "How good and pleasant it is when brethren dwell together." There's a lot of brethren in the neighborhood, but they aren't dwelling together. They're isolated. They aren't connected. The vision Michael's talking about with Cornelius and Peter is that the brethren came together. We long for a time when Messianic congregations and just regular Christian congregations are dwelling together in unity, come together, that we see this, because we're all after the same thing, unity with God. And I was just thinking Psalm 133 would be a good explanation for the Cornelius thing.
It is a good one. Don't go away.
Oh.
We're done. I just wanted to ask you if there was anything else you wanted to add tonight since you came out to be with us. And
For me, the whole thing about membership, most of the benefits of membership are unseen because they're all spiritual. There are some Well, I can't say they're
so
all
there's
spiritual.
there's a spiritual covering that
Yes.
goes with membership,
Yes.
and that's protection. And
It's like when a couple, if we weren't married but just being together, we can have a very nice life. But when you take that step into covenant and say, yes, I will commit to you, and you will commit to me, something happens. And it not only happens between the two, but it happens in the heavenlies. There is a spiritual power that enters into that relationship that does not exist without that committed yes, an agreement. And it really is an issue of the heart. Is your heart, has the Lord set your heart here? If the Lord has set your heart here, then covenant is a good thing. If he has not sent your heart here, then for heaven's sakes, find where he wants to plant you, because he wants everyone planted somewhere.
some people want a guarantee, and very few things in life are guaranteed. But death and taxes, Roger says.
Yeah, I'd say death is the only guarantee. That's the only sure guarantee.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think one of the things that you get with membership is the leadership side of the covenant. We're covenantally committed to you. We'll rejoice with you. We will cry with you. We will walk with you. We will celebrate with you.
We'll pick you up when you fall.
And you can do the same for us. And
We had a meeting last night with a member, and that this member was having a serious difficulty in their life. And it was one of the most anointed, it makes me cry. That's what it means to be in covenant. We met with them and we talked with them and we shared life together and we talked about issues and we talked about what was going on with them and how can we come into service for you to help you in this circumstance. And we talked about how we could do things. And
don't leave out the prayer.
And yeah, I mean, most of the talk was a lot of prayer. But that's what it means to be in covenant. You know, he says...
And when that person left the meeting, there was a different look.
Yeah. They came in downcast and stressed out and frustrated, and they left with hope. And we got so excited. we all left with hope and excitement too, because that's what it's about. It's about when a sheep has fallen, you're going to go and you're not going to let it go over the cliff. You're going to grab it, pull it back, and help it to stay with the pack, to stay where in the safe places, to stay within the boundaries. They had, you know how the enemy, when life is getting kind of hard, sometimes the enemy wants to get you isolated and will pull you away. And that person was pulling away, and it's like, no, come in. Let's talk about this. Let's look at this. And it ended up just beautiful.
So,
That's what it means to be in covenant.
thank you, Jan.
Okay, yay.
I have something I want to add to that. We actually had 2 meetings yesterday with members. One of them was for correction. There was something that needed to be corrected. And I was talking to my wife on the way home, and I was like, you know, this is really interesting because we brought correction to this person. And part of the correction, we just looked at him and we asked this person, said, would you be okay if we would you give us permission to speak into your life? Well, sure, yeah. And we did, and we told this person, we love you. And we just see some things that are going on that are destructive, and we want to help you with them. Can we help you? Yeah, sure. And we shared the things that we were seeing happening, and we said, this needs to change, this needs to change, this needs to change. And by the time we finished, we prayed together, and that person actually walked out with shoulders back and a head high, receiving correction.
That's
And
the way it's supposed to work.
it is. And what I told my wife yesterday, I said we couldn't have done that unless we were healthy. Have you ever heard the phrase hurt people hurt people?
Sure.
Had we as leaders been walking in hurts, as much as we would have wanted to help that person, we would have hurt them. And we can't help them unless we're healthy. Then we met with this second person later on, and this person was shaking in fear, fearing trouble. I'm in trouble. No, you're not in trouble. We see some things in your life that we want to help you with. We want to come around you. We want to gather around you, bind up your wounds, put salve on it, and we want to walk with you. And when we did, we basically got down on the floor with this person, and we sat with them. We stayed there, and we got comfortable, and we poured life into this person. And you're right, by the end of our session together, there was a change in demeanor.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
So blessed.
And that's what we're supposed to do as the body.
So this is our initial, let me since we didn't cover it earlier, this is the first of 6 sessions. We said that.
7, isn't it?
Is it 7?
I think it's 7. I think there's 6 more.
Thank you. I've been corrected before.
Maybe only once. I mean,
Never took
you're
offense
rarely ever wrong.
I never took offense in the past. But, so 7 classes. Yeah, we like to do things in 7s, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
7. The other 6 are online. We're going to send you the link. If you're here tonight, I'm going to take a note in just a minute who's here. And we'll have them available. The Hyasode series is available. I don't know, we have a schedule, it's on the calendar to teach it again, right? I'm not exactly sure when, but it's coming up. It may be on the calendar we handed out yesterday, because it's coming up soon.
Okay, I'm unaware. Who's teaching it?
Me and Jan.
Really?
Well, it's a video series, so it only needs someone to push the play button, which I feel very well qualified to do. And I'll answer your questions when we take a break. In the middle, we take a break, and at the end, we take a break, and I'll answer your questions. The Hyasode series is high-quality material on Messianic Judaism produced by First Fruits of Zion. We agree with about 85% of it, I'd say, maybe a little more. And there are some parts of Rabbinic Judaism where they go a little further than we're willing to go. But it's not a deal breaker. It doesn't make the whole thing invaluable. And it means that we can get along with people who go that far. They're just a little farther than me personally. But you don't have to match up with me personally to be a member here. Part of our membership class is to be sure we're on the same page about all the big stuff, about the value of seeing Israel brought into the kingdom.
And that's why we call it toward membership, so that you can move in that direction. And if any time you feel that this is not, that there's a misalignment between us, you're welcome to not become a member if you choose not to. So, and one other thing I wanted to touch on. Rabbi mentioned earlier, that God told His people, to come. It's a place and a time that I would choose. You know, that you're to come to this place that I choose and at the time that I choose. That's where you meet with me. I think that's very valuable, just as a lesson for us. You know, as far as choosing where you become a member, we've got a I guess what you call a short-term rental that we run. It's on our property. It's a VRBO. I'm not making a plug for it. I'm making an example. There's folks that are staying there right now that have moved to this area from LA. And good Christian folks. And they've not yet found a church. I had a conversation with the husband, father, and told him, I said, look, I would encourage you to not do what most people do around here and go church hopping or church shopping. Don't make a list of your wants. Don't make a list of things that you've got to have. Just pray and ask the Lord where He would have you to go. And follow the leading of the Lord. Because if you're going shopping, you're going to find a place and it's going to disappoint. And then you're going to go shopping again and you're going to find a place and it's going to disappoint. And then you're going to go shopping again. And it's a never-ending cycle that everybody around here is subject to.
It's a consumer mentality that was never intended for the body of Messiah to be a team of shoppers looking for the most polished worship team.
Well, the other side of that is it actually makes what is called church discipline impossible. Because what will happen is they'll get upset or they'll get in trouble and they just go to the church down the road. And of course the pastors of those two churches do not communicate with each other. They just welcome the person in until they have the trouble with them. And then, and it's just a never-ending cycle. That's not what God designed for us. He wants us to come into covenant.
By the way, did you suggest Messianic Judaism?
I did not.
Can I interest you in a talit and a kippah?
We did invite them to our home group because they're living right there with us on the same property.
See how it fits.
I'd rather the Lord lead them to it.
I'm sure.
So,
I was kidding. Most people laughed. It was funny.
Oh, good.
That was the objective. All right.
Does anybody have any questions? Trevor.
I need a little more on this House of Cornelius vision.
Say that again.
Yeah.
I need a little more on this House of Cornelius vision. I mean, when you kind of cracked open the door to that vision there, my mind starts racing, and I'm thinking, is the vision to, quote, take the show on the road and we're going to visit Christian churches and hold services there and vice versa? Is that what you're thinking?
Not so much. We know that it's a vision of inclusion. We know that it's a vision that that is not top-down oriented, but a vision of mutual blessing that doesn't require the non-Jews to become Jews, and it doesn't require the Messianic Jews to become non-Messianic. It's a coming together. What it does is it speaks against a vision that has been prevalent in a lot of Messianic Judaism of exclusivity. We've got a better brand of Christianity than you Sunday churches out there. It smacks in the face of that and says, no, we want to partner with other like-minded believers to build the kingdom of God together. So it might involve some inner city projects that we work on together. It might involve some trips to Israel that we work on together and ways of blessing the ministries there. Jan had a comment. I'll take my mic over to her.
While
Keith
you're
wants to
doing that, I'll
answer.
share. The reality is that Israel is really a closed mission field. I mean, you're not gonna go as a Gentile and be successful as a missionary spreading the gospel in Israel. The way to reach Israel is through the Messianic Jewish community. So the way to reach God's people is actually part of the vision that we see with this Cornelius vision is to help educate local churches about how to support the Messianic movement in Israel to bring God's people back to himself through his own people.
Dan Juster has said often, and to me, in my hearing, I've heard it, where church relations are good with the Messianic community, where the church relations are good with the Messianic community, Jewish evangelism is good. The churches out there know a lot more Jewish people than the people in here. So if we're going to reach that community for Messiah, it's going to be a both and together with proposition that is part of this inclusionary vision for the Cornelius, you can call it the Cornelius vision. Ann?
It's also something that's unfolding. I mean, it isn't.
We don't have all the answers.
Yeah, it isn't
We don't know.
something that's, here's our 5-point plan. It is not that. It is something that the Lord highlighted, and he is now starting to unfold, and we're starting to see it occur. And as it is occurring, it's like, this is that. It is God leading us to what he's pointing to.
And mark your calendar for a date in June. The 8th is a Thursday. June the 8th is a Thursday. And Eitan Shishkoff is coming from Israel and to be with us on that day, that Thursday afternoon at noon. I want to invite every person in Knoxville that loves Yeshua and has a vision to see Israel saved to come and be with us on that day, especially pastors of churches that have a love for Israel. And I want you all to help me get them invited, because they won't respond to my invitation, but if you know them, they'll respond to yours. I need your help. June the 8th, Thursday. He'll be with us on Saturday, June the 10th.
There's a phrase in the book of Romans that talks about the fullness of the Gentiles. You know, that at the fullness of the Gentiles is when we will see Israel saved. I really believe that the education of the Gentiles to understand the place of Israel in God's plan and to understand the reality of who his people are to him is part of the fullness of the Gentiles. The fullness of the Gentiles is the Gentiles actually not shunning or being better than or replacement theology or anything like that. It's actually them embracing God's people and understanding their place in his plan. I believe that's part of the fullness of the Gentiles, and I believe that's part of this Cornelius vision.
Good. I turned mine off, so you got to pray.
Oh, got to pray. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, very good. Must have done a good job.
We've got some handouts for you.
Let's pray. Father, we bless you and thank you, Lord, for this time to come together and speak about covenant relationship and membership here at Shomer. Father, I pray that you please lead each person individually that's supposed to be here. Lead them to us. And if they're not supposed to be here, I pray that you'd give clarity. I pray that you give us a good, safe trip back home this evening. And I pray that you would just bless our efforts this week to spread the gospel and be good stewards of your word. B'Shem Yeshua. Amen.